On point.
Right. We're rolling now. Pale. Right. What is happening, people? Welcome to the first installment of the Archive podcast. You are here with myself, Dan Evans, and
me, Joel Harries,
bit of latency there. Didn't register with him quite like straight away, so
I'm trying to get a setup so pieced in. I'm still new to this, bro.
yeah, it's baby steps, bro. Baby steps. This podcast territory is new for us. So what are we going to chat about today, Joel? Basically, for the people that are not really sure who myself and Joel are, we are just a bunch of blokes who think we know shit.
A bunch of blokes. We're just two blokes, people, mate.
Two blokes who think we know shit. But basically, Joel, just give a little bit of a background on like what you do and the background do you have.
Yeah, so I've been a PT for probably like just under a year now, and I studied strength and conditioning in university with a background really of like starting in rugby. So I started in rugby, been playing that for 9 years, I think. But then, as you do, a lot of people go into a sport, train to get better at the sport, and then prefer that they love the training more than the sport themselves, and then they get immersed into that. So that's where I've kind of got my background from. I still play rugby, but I do have a passion for all things strength, really, like weightlifting, powerlifting, CrossFit, strongman. I've dabbled a bit of it all. So that's my background. I'm just a little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none in the strength world at the minute.
Yeah, like I've just got a completely unconventional way of getting into the industry, basically. Obviously, like every lad when they go through like, adolescence, get into the gym, but I just kind of like enjoyed the gym a little bit more than like
train for them girls, bro.
So like I found myself like in the gym, enjoying learning about it and the process behind like the education side of it. So like I obviously enrolled in university, studied my undergrad in strength and conditioning. Currently undertake my masters at the University of South Wales in advanced methods of strength and conditioning. So I've been a PT for just over 3 years. So like I started my PT career just at the start of my enrollment in university. And that kind of like benefited me then through the course, like obviously the output of coaching and that kind of thing. So yeah, if people don't know, me and Joel are colleagues, so we actually work in the same facility. So that's how me and Joel kind of introduced each other to each other, basically. So
yeah, when we first started in the job, I'll be honest, I looked at Dan and I thought, that's not the sort of bloke I want to be around, to be honest. but yeah.
Like inevitably we cross paths because we both are obviously in the same field. So and we both have like commonalities in interests and such. So we get on pretty well now. So
yeah, it blossomed from when I first like started training in the gym. I was like, he's a really unsociable kid. Like I was like,
I know that is social. You just gotta like pay me to socialize with you. I'm completely kidding, but I'll be your friend if you pay my hourly rate. It's a joke. I'm joking. But yeah, so now that we got the formalities out of Joel, I think we should discuss, the big elephant in the room. Like people who follow me and Joel on social media know that lately we've been beefing high intensity interval training quite a lot. And to be fair, it is a little bit tongue in cheek, like with the stuff that we post on social media. We do play up that fact that like the criticism, bro. Like we obviously play up the criticism a little bit. Like obviously we've been talking a little bit of smack about high intensity interval training, but that doesn't mean that like we completely bash it as a practice. Like if Joel, you want to like go into like a little bit of like start a rebuttal for us, so like people just don't lose complete faith in like what we have to say.
I started this whole little debate when I said about maybe progressive overload, like and focusing on that is going to be better than doing HIIT training during lockdown. And I still stand by that statement, but I also stand by the statement that there's no such thing as a wrong exercise, only wrong like prescription of it. So if you can understand the why and the rationale of why you're doing anything and you can defend it, then that's your choice. Then like you're in the wrong, and who's to tell you anything different? But I think too many of the times people have jumped on the bandwagon of HIIT because it's something that leaves people ball bagged, and they're like, oh, I had a mega good workout. I burnt so many calories. I'm sweating. And sometimes that ain't the measure of a good workout. Sometimes you need to look at, did I get the work done I need to do to get better towards my goal? So if your goal is getting stronger, then maybe HIIT training shouldn't be the priority of your training for however long lockdown's going to be. So you've been in it like 9 weeks at the minute. And if all you've done is HIIT and then you come out wondering why you're not as strong as you was, then you've shot yourself in the foot. That's my thinking behind it. And I don't know about you, but I feel like everyone's jumped on the HIIT bandwagon because it's selling at the minute. People are doing like HIIT because people want to feel like they've like thrashed themselves.
Well, like from like early training perspective, like a lot of the workouts that you do see prescribed in gyms and a lot of the classes are HIIT based. Like until recently, I haven't seen a lot of like strength training practices being put in place in classes anyway. So a lot of that early sort of group fitness trend, like the CrossFit trend, like it's all very like, you know, fast paced, like metabolic based, like aerobic conditioning. Um, as a training method, it's just the same as any. It's like strength training. The nature of strength training is to get a different output and a different goal to that of HIIT. So by saying that one is better than the other is obviously like incorrect, because like they offer completely different perspectives in regards to training. So whereas like what would you typically get out of a HIIT workout? Like you get that metabolic conditioning element, you get a little bit of aerobic stimulus, anaerobic stimulus. Like would you do strength training to get that stimulus? Probably not. In fact, definitely not.
No, and I think that's why the fitness like industry, everyone's like, why do you always answer what if to a question? And it is because it all depends. So like if someone comes up to me and goes, what's the best style of training? I'm going to be like, for what? Because if you straight up answer, say, strength training, you've got your individual bias towards strength training, but it might not suit the needs of whoever's asking. So that's why that question, what if, and like what for, is like the most like pertinent question in the industry.
Yeah, it's like my favorite question. Do I do high weight, low reps, low weight, high reps? You do all of them, bro.
Yeah, like, or what for?
Yeah, and my beef initially wasn't with HIIT. It was the prescription of certain exercises. You know, very technical exercises require a large level of competency and, you know, training level. Just because of the nature of HIIT, high impact, pretty fast pace, you get fatigued quickly. What is fatigue? It just kills movement competency. And if somebody can't move to a certain criteria anyway, when they're tired, they're going to move like dog shit, and they're at risk of then getting a little niggle or a chronic injury, or, you know, something that's going to put them out of training in the long term is going to occur just because of that fatigue element and the discrepancy with the training levels across groups in fitness environments. And like these online prescriptions, like nobody sees these people on a one-to-one basis. Nobody can rationalize giving a person 5 minutes of max burpees at the end of a HIIT class. Like that's the type of prescription that we see in across Instagram, which like obviously I rubs myself up the wrong way. I know Joel probably feels the same way about this, which is why we both kind of like slammed HIIT. And we did get quite a lot of people message us like, oh, you know, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. You're obviously your bias, your strength and conditioning coaches. But strength and conditioning is like a multifaceted like thing. Like you
strength and conditioning.
Yeah, there's
one and the other.
Like I'm not saying we cover it all, we're experts in it all, but we kind of like know it's such a broad like sort of practice. So by saying that we have a bias towards strength is just massively like just wrong.
No, but like for myself, I know I have a slight bias towards strength because it's what I've studied, is what I've practiced, is what's got me better, is what's getting like a lot of results for my clients. And it's one of those things that I feel like everyone should place an emphasis on getting stronger, no matter what their goal is, because it's going to benefit them with like injury movement competency and things like that.
Strength
But
is never
then
a weakness,
to
eh?
say, well, but then when you think back, like if you only do strength training, you're going to have flaws in your game. So it's like strongmen, for example. Some of them are really good at static events because they're so strong, but then some are weaker at dynamic events. And I think you've got to get a perfect blend of the two, and you should never leave a stone unturned. If your individual goal is to get better at one thing, then you are going to neglect other areas. But if your general goal is health and fitness and being just a healthier individual, why would you neglect certain areas because you've got like a bias towards something? Yeah, if you enjoy something, you're going to tend to do it more, but that doesn't mean you should neglect the other areas. That's why I've always decided that I want to try and cover as much as possible in fitness.
And
Like,
yeah, like ultimately it just depends on like what you enjoy. If you like, no training program is good unless you enjoy it,
yeah,
because otherwise why the fuck are you doing it?
yeah. If you're doing it for a specific reason, like because you've got an injury and you need to rehab it, yeah, it's not going to be enjoyable. I've
Obviously,
had
yeah.
injuries, rehab shite. You're there, you're doing like small movements, boring stuff, but it's needed to do. But if the majority of your training you hit and you're not doing it for a specific reason, then you're probably going to deter off that. You're going to like think, oh, why am I doing it? And your motivation's going to plummet as well as your results. So if you enjoy something, by all means,
Mm-hmm.
like do it regularly. But then is the bias towards something where people are like, oh, I've only done HIIT training this, and they look back to their goal and then they relate, well, am I actually getting better towards my goal? That's the end thing. You've got to realize is if you've got a specific goal in mind, you've got to train to achieve that specific goal.
From a coach's perspective as well, like you are just going to have massive differences based on individuals. If you are a group coach, if you coach in a team environment or you coach in a group fitness class, you will get individuals that perform better, or just sometimes even divas, and they don't want to do a particular exercise. At that point, you need to decide whether it's more important for that person to stick to the program to the T and do the exercises programmed, or can you give a little bit of a different option? Because if one, you're developing neuromuscular strength, like I said, I've said before, strength is strength. Neuromuscular strength carries over. So if you want to get strong to be able to be better at performing a task, like an output of a sport, then do you really need to work on a specific exercise, or can you just switch that? Obviously, there's, it's contextual to like lower body strength. If you're training squats and some guy doesn't want to do squats for 5 sets of 3, you don't give him bench for 5 sets of 3, do you? You might give him a deadlift or a trap bar deadlift. Obviously,
Always bench.
some people might even, some people might wonder what I'm on about you. So, oh, what if he says I'm going to do squats? I'm just about to strength. I can go bench.
Yeah, no,
No. But
is like
like,
there's a lot of exercises that train that joint pattern. So if you're looking at lower body knee dominant strength, you can squat, you can split squat, you can do lunges. A lot of things are going to develop that. And I think people get caught up on an exercise because the compound movements of the squat, bench, and deadlift are always preached. But like you said, there's so many different ways that you can target that, like a certain stimulus you want, and still
yeah.
get an output of strength being strength.
Yeah, and like this is the same with HIIT. Like, if you have like an exercise such as the burpee, for example, everyone knows I love a burpee.
Touchy subject.
Everyone
Touchy
knows I love a
subject on the
burpee.
old burpee.
But the thing is, if a person, you got an elite CrossFitter or a very, very fit bloke, let's just call him a very, very fit bloke, can do a burpee with relatively good competency under fatigue. He isn't really at risk. He can throw himself down on the floor and get back up pretty efficiently. Whereas, like, I've got Marie that works in the co-op, and she suffers with a little bit of back pain. Maybe I'll give her a different exercise. Will she still get the same like aerobic like stimulus out of it? Yeah. Will she save herself like potential for a chronic injury in the future? Probably. So that's like where you can sort of like use your initiative as a coach or a trainee, thinking like, what do I want to get out of the exercise rather than just performing an exercise? Like I said before, again, if you want to get proficient at an exercise, do the exercise. But it depends what you want to get out of it. And it always comes down to the why.
Yeah. And I think that's why having like a coach in a group class that can adapt on the spot is
Hmm.
like a necessity, because otherwise you say you go online, you rip a CrossFit workout up, and then you see there's burpees, there's wall balls, there's a lot of things. And you're like, right, I know I struggle with burpees, but then you keep them in there because that's how that's how the workout's written, and you do it. And if you've got someone there that knows your limitations, they can be like, right, we'll substitute that out with something that's better suited to you. You're still going to get the adaptation. You can still be part of the class, but you're not going to feel like shit the next day, and you're not going to feel like left out for not doing something. So that, I think that's one of the biggest traits as a coach, is being adaptable on the spot.
Yeah, and
And that's the problem with HIIT workouts at the minute, is because you're prescribing a HIIT workout, say it's a live class, say it's a Zoom class, you don't really get that input. You don't get that visual input that you need to adapt and make the changes on the fly.
yeah, and what I find is that on these online prescriptions or online classes, a lot of them do put a little bit of a workout breakdown in the workout itself, but I never see appropriate regressions or, progressions even. So there's that missing element. You can't really auto-regulate in it like a class online because you don't see the individual. So a lot of caution, like I just feel like there's little consideration when it comes to the prescription of HIIT, especially at this time because everyone's at home and a HIIT workout is probably the easiest. It is one of the only things that you can prescribe if you're relatively like new in the field.
It,
Like
yeah,
it's
it's
easy
short
to
and
prescribe.
sharp.
It's short, sharp. It gets people working. It gets people moving, and it's easy to prescribe. Like all you got to do is put a lot of exercises in, a dense environment. You know, keep the density high. And people will get sweaty and people will be like breathing heavy. That's why that's why I feel like there's an overprescription of HIIT exercises, and you're getting more experts now come out and say like I'm the best like HIIT personal trainer here. Like my classes are the best. Like, but like, do you really understand why? And do you understand the exercise order prescription? Like, do you understand the demands of the movement? And do you understand how difficult that may be for a specific person that may be partaking in your exercise? Can you answer the questions? When I do this, this happens. If you can't answer those questions, you need to ask yourself, should I really be prescribing
Describing it.
And a lot
And
of these people don't.
yeah, and I think with HIIT, right, we're coining all these home workouts as HIIT. HIIT is high intensity interval training, and it
So
usually gets you
broad.
working at your it usually gets you working at your max heart rate pretty quickly, with periods of rest to allow you to get back up to that max heart rate and repeated intervals. So you're working, you're resting. But because it's become such a popular word, it's being thrown about like willy-nilly. And
Mm.
some of these classes are not HIIT classes, they're just endurance classes. So you're doing 1,500 reps of something, for example. You're not going to be working at high intensity for all of that. There's going to be periods where you're just building volume up and things like that.
Mm.
Where these classes then, they're all coined under one bracket, and there's so much variation that people are losing sight of what HIIT is, and it's just interval training at a high intensity.
Yeah.
And I think is the same with anything. As soon as something like popular comes in and it's like a new fad, people are like, oh, let's all try and throw everything under this bracket so I can market myself a bit better.
Yeah, like HIIT sells.
Yeah.
Sells. People love
And
it.
the thing is, the reason why it sells is because it feels people leaving like absolutely knackered, which is what people feel like they need. It is short, sharp, so people can get it over and done with, and is often changed up workout to workout, so it's more enjoyable. You're not doing the same things over and over again. And the
Yeah.
problem with getting stronger is usually you do the same things over and over again, get really good at them, progress slowly, and you reap those rewards over a longer period of time. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
with HIIT, you spike up really quick. You get better really good because you're doing it. You're working in that max heart rate zone. You're getting better at controlling all the things that happen. So you're getting better and better. But then it plateaus off pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And people can then lose a bit of motivation. They're like, I'm not getting better. I'm not getting better. How do I get better? And the reality is you've peaked so quickly that you've just got a long, slow, like decline sometimes because you're not monitoring the training well. With like strength training, you get a slow increase in gains. And that's why people sometimes veer towards HIIT, is because they can see the results a lot quicker. They can do more max burpees in 5 minutes. They know they're getting better at those. Whereas with strength, it's like, right, we'll do this. Next week, we'll add 2 kilos. Next week, we'll add a bit. Oh, you're starting to level off a little bit. We'll come back down. We'll work back up. It's a slow process compared to the
Yeah.
fast-paced nature of HIIT.
And what I find is, like, because strength is such a demanding output, they can be it's not linear at all, which is what I think people look for linearity in strength training. Like, they want to get stronger and better every week. As with anything, you want to get better. If you're doing something, you want to get better every single week. You want to see you want to see the benefits of what you're putting into it. Whereas, like, with strength training, sometimes you're just not going to be able to. Like, one day you're going to go in the gym and you're going to get under a bar and it's going to feel like 10 tons. Whereas last week it felt really, like, relatively easy for that specific intensity that you're lifting. Like, because of the sort of, like, sensitivity of, like, that performing at that higher load, there's going to be a massive discrepancy from session to session to your performance. Whereas, like, because HIIT is, like, over a longer time, do you get what I'm saying? Like, you won't be able to notice the decrease in performances each week. Do you get me? So if one session in a HIIT environment, you kind of feel fresh and you perform well, whereas the next session you may not perform as well as last week, but you don't notice it as much. With strength training, sometimes you just notice that a little bit more.
Right, I get what you mean.
Do you
So,
get
like,
me?
when you're doing a workout, you might feel like a little bit lethargic, whatever, but you push through and it's like one of those days where it just wasn't there. But with strength training, it's quite hard to get demotivated. For example, I was squatting the other day. I was supposed to do it 170 for 20. I got under the bar and I was like, this ain't it, chief. You know what I mean? It was like,
that's what
I
I mean.
was there. I done 14 reps of my 20 rep set and I had to re-rack and I felt like disheartened. The
that's
week
exactly what I'm
after,
talking
I
about.
put 2.5 kilos on there, hit it for 20. I can progress next week. You might not always see the progression in strength training, but then you'll always notice an off day because you expect to be 100% 24/7.
Exactly. Like, another thing that somebody accused us of saying, that you can't be strong and do HIIT. Like, the thing is, it depends. Like, HIIT isn't going to make you not strong. If you're strong, HIIT isn't going to stop you being strong. HIIT isn't going to have any detriment to your strength training unless it's programmed poorly. Unless it's programmed inefficiently, or, like, you're doing sessions that contrast in adaptation, you're going to get strong and you are going to reap the benefits of HIIT training regardless. It just has to be programmed in a relatively well thought out manner. So, like, if you want to, like, touch on, like, how to program HIIT alongside strength training to get the benefits of both, because we don't prefer both on this channel, guys. We love everything.
Yeah, we're a big inclusive community. But it comes back to that question. You look at Ross Edgley, right?
Yeah, what an absolute freak.
And he said, I'm trying to think of the actual quote, but it was like, can you train optimally for endurance and strength at the same time? And my answer was like, you can, but it's not going to be optimal.
Not for either.
If your main goal is getting like as strong as possible, 100% as strong as possible, you're not going to worry about endurance training. Your main goal is to get strong. All your training is going to be focused on getting stronger. The same thing as if you're an endurance trainer, like, you might dedicate one session a week to getting stronger and the rest of them is going to be on building your aerobic base. Whereas if you want to get gains in both of them, it is possible, but they're going to be at a slower rate. So they're going to kind of fight each other because they are contrasting things.
Yeah.
So Go on.
Right. So I'll just like Joel said, if you're training endurance and strength, neither are going to be developed optimally. But if you're training them both, you can optimize each of them by thinking out your program. So go on.
Yeah.
What you were
So
saying?
if you were going to do strength training alongside endurance training, the two have different like chemical responses in the body, so they're going to like kind of clash, and the adaptations are not going to be as high. So say you used to only do strength training, you get up here. Say you used to only do endurance training, your strength stuff stays here, your endurance stuff stays. You can kind of find a level where they balance, but you can see they don't actually reach as high as they normally would if you focus on the one. So the things that I've seen is if you do your strength training first, and then on a different day do your endurance stuff, or if you want to build your endurance base, keep it a lot lower intensity, keep your lows low, keep your highs high. So if you're on a high strength day, make sure all your strength work is high intensity and everything's firing, and then your aerobic stuff could just be a brisk walk in a certain heart rate zone. That you're still going to get endurance adaptations. You might think it's a bit easy, but that's the point. Your lows are low, your highs are high. So if you're then doing a high endurance session, you're not going to expect then, right, I'm going to go in and PR my back squat.
If any of you are wondering why this is, basically you've got your body has different ways of adapting to like low intensity output and high intensity output. Like one, if you train strength and you put pretty much, it's a high intense workout. Like you're lifting a lot of tin, you're working in that 1 to 6 rep range, and basically if you then put an endurance output in there, one stimulus is gonna bias over the other. One is going to take priority. Your body can't really adapt optimally to both at the same time. So typically you may see like if you are doing an endurance output, that might kind of take a little bit of adaptation away from your strength training. Do you get me?
And I think that's where you've got to try and optimize both. So for games players, like rugby players, that is always a problem, because you've got to have a decent endurance base to last 80 minutes. You're running around, you're covering probably like 5 to 7K in a game. That's quite a far bit of distance in 80 minutes. You're walking, but then at the same time, you've got to be strong. So being strong improves like running velocities, as well as like the inertia you get in for momentum and things like that. And they all bias towards being a better rugby player. So if you're lacking in one area, it might notice, but then that's why you've got to realize what your position is. So an outside back might need less strength than a front row forward. So you've got to optimize a balance, and that's where you've got to realize if you're more endurance based, you're going to have to do a little bit more endurance stuff. If you're strength based, you're going to have to do a bit more strength stuff. But you don't neglect one over the other. It's just the quantities that determine how much of each you need to do.
Exactly. It's just literally like a balancing act of training load, because like you can, if you're coming from like obviously a field sport like perspective, like you can as a strength coach, you can consider like how much of that aerobic conditioning output are they getting from their actual training. I don't know. I'm not in rugby. Like you tell me. Whichever population you're working with, like, you know, you get your athletes in the gym. You see them in the gym. What are they doing on the field? Obviously, you're going to be present on the field, like if you're in like a decent, like, you know, club or whatever. But how much of their conditioning element are they getting out of their field sessions?
Yeah,
You know,
so it's
can you
like what
then?
they do.
Do you need to prescribe more? Probably not.
So is what they do is pre-season, they'll put a lot more running. They'll develop your aerobic base through like a lot of running when you don't have games and stuff, because you can get more out of it. The more you run, the better you get at running. Like easy enough. But what happens is when you get that certain point of where you're good enough at running, to keep that level is a lot easier than to develop it. So then the amount of volume you need and the amount of time you need to throw into that actual activity is a lot lower.
So you've got that minimum effective dose.
Yeah, so you got your minimum effective dose, you've got your maintenance volume, which is even lower again. So if you're running fit, you're running exactly where you need to be. Like you're hitting your targets, then the amount of running you need to do will probably be enough to maintain with just the field-based sessions you do. You don't have to do any extras.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas then if you're still shit at running, you're going to have to run more.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing. If you're strong and say you're hitting like 1 rep maxes that are like on target, your power output's good, then you don't have to do as much strength and power stuff to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the blend of getting like maintenance volume, your minimum effective dose. So your minimum effective dose is just the like smallest amount of volume you need to get better.
Yeah.
Whereas your maintenance volume is even smaller again, and that's just to maintain where you are.
Competency. Yeah. And like obviously you'll see improvements in performance across the board if you get stronger. That's pretty, that's pretty much well accepted. Like strength can never hurt your performance. Like I remember like when I first got into the S&C world, like a lot of my tutors would just say like early days people would like, oh, don't lift weights, it'll make them slow. Like when it's not true. But ultimately, like I think, like concluding point is like when we started talking about HIIT, is like where we got talking into like strength and mixing the conditioning element. Like it's just finding that balance. Like don't choose one over the other. Like obviously, like you'll have your biases and you'll have whatever you prefer, but ultimately, you should have a balance. Like
yeah,
so
and
yeah,
that's why like
I know why
back
you're
that
doing
point
it.
was back that point was, can you maintain strength and build strength while doing HIIT? Yeah, but you're not going to optimize it. The same thing, you can build like endurance and like that aerobic adaptation while still doing strength training. But
Exactly.
it's just depending on who you are and what your goal is, you've got to try and get a perfect blend between strength and endurance to get where you need to be. So if your threshold's there, you've got to realize that you've got to get up to there somehow, and that's going to be the blend that you choose. So can you get stronger while doing HIIT? Yeah. Is it going to be optimal if your goal is strength? No. But if your goal is enjoyment and just getting training there and you enjoy HIIT, then by all means do it.
It's just going to be a longer process. Like you're not capping your potential of strength by doing HIIT. You're just prolonging that process because you're reducing your frequency of strength training, because your frequency of strength training is going to go down because you're replacing that with HIIT. You can't do both at the same time. You can't cram more days into the week just to make room for HIIT or strength. So you're only prolonging that process. You're not capping your horizons. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to get there. And I think that's a good point to close off that HIIT discussion.
Yeah, because you look at it, it's CrossFit, isn't it? Yeah. CrossFit is like HIIT. So you see strong CrossFitters, you see better endurance-based CrossFitters, and they manage it throughout the week. If they're shit at strength, they'll focus on getting stronger for a while, and then they might maintain that. And I think everyone's quick to coin what is better, and is just like, and if you we've slated HIIT, but we're not.
We haven't really slated HIIT. We've never said HIIT is bad. Like I said on my post that I don't endorse HIIT, but relative to like contextual to the HIIT that I see on Instagram and what my audience is seeing HIIT as, I don't completely. But anyway, back to the CrossFit thing. If you see CrossFit at an elite level or competitive level, they don't just do CrossFit WODs every session. That's not what their training looks like. In case you didn't know. So like when you see like, oh, but look at fucking Brendan Fraser, he's fucking
Brendan Fraser.
He can oh no. Whatever his name is. I've frozen now. Oh bollocks.
Matt Fraser. Oh.
Matt Fraser, that's the one. Brendan Fraser's that fucking actor, isn't he? Matt Fraser, whatever he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Matt Fraser, that's the one. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm not in the CrossFit field, but him, like you look at him, he's like an impressive bloke. He didn't get to that level from, doing those WODs. Like, do you get me?
No, and that's why you see like Matt Fraser used to be an Olympic weightlifter. Alex Smith used to be a gymnast, and that's why they have their strength, and that's why when people see a heavy barbell with weightlifting, they're like, right, Matt Fraser's probably up there in this one. They see a gymnastics workout, they're like, Alex Smith is up there in this one. So that's why I think you kind of need to specialize slightly,
Yeah.
but then you can't close off other areas. You're going to have your strengths, you're going to have your weaknesses.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to be the most mobile person in the world. I'll be the first to say that.
I had a good question for the podcast on Instagram. I'll check that now. I'll probably have to cut that because my connection went a bit funny. Right, where's this question? Basically, the question was, is there such thing as a bad exercise? Yeah, it was Liam Morgan. Is there a bad exercise?
Burpees.
Fuck burpees, bro. No, fuck burpees. No. I don't think there's a bad exercise. But maybe there is a bad exercise. There's certainly exercise. There's certainly exercises that people shouldn't do, but does that mean everyone shouldn't do them? Probably not. There's no. You just have to know why you're doing an exercise. Again,
I think on that answer is why you're doing it, and then the only two things that I would say you never really look for are knee valgus and like rounding your spine. So there are going to be some exercises that do that have specific demands to like a certain sport. So the Jefferson curl is like rounding your back right over. Does it have its place? Yeah, but you've got to understand why you're doing it.
Like, the thing is, you see somebody doing a J curl, if you don't know what a J curl is or a Jefferson curl, like your spine is like that, and you're basically moving through that range of motion. Whereas if you see someone deadlift like that, you go, ooh, somebody help that. Damn. Like, yeah, somebody help that guy. But, you know, it's completely, it's completely contextual. Like, it depends. Like, you'll get frustrated. Like, I certainly got frustrated through uni because at the start, like, most of the answers to the questions you've got is the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
And that's what you'll find through your training career or through your coaching or PTing. Like, it completely depends.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let me see if I can get any other questions, and then we'll.
I had another question. So someone messaged me asking about what is the best way to come back to training after this time off. So when the gyms open back up, what's the best thing that they can do to prepare themselves to go back to lifting? So with that, I think you've got to realize the amount of volume that you've been doing at home is probably similar, if maybe slightly lower. But what you haven't got is that spinal loading and that tendon loading that you'd have with heavy weights if you're strength training. And the guy who asked me was a weightlifter. So you haven't got that reactive tendon loading normally or that heavy spinal loading that you're used to. So what you need to do is manage your intensities in weight and like acclimatize to that spinal loading as well as tendon loading. So you're not overloading because the muscles adapt first and then the tendons and stuff come later. So you've got to realize that you will have a little bit of a strength decline from the ability to load your tendons. So just don't worry so much about the weight on the bar, focus on the quality of movement and then progressing that slowly. So it's going to be like you're a beginner and you're like, oh, I've got to take things slow, but that will come back pretty quick as well.
It isn't going to be, you know, you ain't going to lose a lot of neuromuscular capacity. It's just, you've just got to look at the other avenues of where you could potentially go wrong and where you should start back. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to jump straight under a 1 rep max squat.
How do I look at the answers for my?
When did you put the post up?
Just a couple of days ago.
Then you won't be able to see them.
Ah, shit.
You got a screenshot, bro. So another one I had was someone was looking at how to bounce back. So they've just been on a cut. How do they bounce back to get in into a gain phase? So I'll let you take this one because you're the bodybuilding expert.
What was the question again?
So you've just gone on a cut, and then how do you focus on transitioning from a cut back to a gaining phase?
Reverse diet. So effectively, there's going to be some metabolic adaptation there. As you cut, you get lighter, so your TDE gets lower, and so on and so forth. So the calories that you may have finished your previous bulk on are not going to be the calories that you start your new gaining phase on. Effectively, you'll just add calories weekly, and that's how you do it. You just focus on staying at a relatively acceptable body composition, and slowly get weight, like making your way towards another surplus. If that's your goal, if you just want to maintain, maybe you just wouldn't. It's all about the caloric intake, and you'd relate that then to your training
Yeah,
volume.
one thing I'd say to like manage body comp if you are going back to a gain phase is utilize stage of maintenance. So at maintenance calories, you're going to reduce body fat slightly. You're going to hold on to more tissue than you would in a deficit. So if you do feel like, oh, I get a little bit tubby now, I'll hit the maintenance phase, get used to that body weight, trim down a little bit, improve body composition, then go back. Don't just think everything's going to be a gain or everything's going to be a lose. You can actually just stay where you are and get better there rather than worrying about up or down.
Yeah, depending on like how lean you are. Like if you're like ridiculously lean, maintaining that is probably going to be an issue.
Yeah,
But for most people, yeah, like it's people misunderstand. Like what I find is like people get fixed on like numbers. These are my bulking calories. No, these are my bulking calories. These are my cutting calories. I need to eat this much calories. Whereas like you change it on a weekly, daily, potentially daily basis. Your like I said, your calories at the start of your cut are not going to be the same as when you finish. When you start your next gaining phase, just because like your weight is different, you've got that adaptation and change in metabolism, believe it or not. So yeah, just reverse diet, gradually increase calories so to avoid fat gain. I had a question by Liam Baines. What do I think of
long dog.
cookie cutter training and nutrition plans? Again, can tie that into the HIIT. What works for one person doesn't work for the other. So why would you copy and paste plans? Like nothing annoys me. Well, I say nothing annoys me more. There's probably something that annoys me more, but it like in the field, this really does annoy me, especially nutrition. Like if you're giving a nutrition plan to one person and this is the same across the board, you're potentially should rethink your career in the field of coaching or PT.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree with you on the nutrition front.
yeah, because nutrition is such like a sensitive subject. Like most people shouldn't be giving nutrition advice. Like I personally don't prescribe nutrition, and I know Joel doesn't prescribe nutrition. But we can advise and there's you can work collaboratively with your client with nutrition. I don't think unless you are like a shit hot nutritionist, you shouldn't be prescribing food. That's just my opinion.
No.
Obviously, like you've got to eat 50 grams of carbs in this meal. Where are you going to get your carbs from? I'm going to get carbs from potato, but the thing is, I like potato, but it doesn't digest well, and I get an upset stomach. Then we can come in and then kind of go, maybe you shouldn't eat potato, maybe you should just eat rice or something else that you can digest well.
And I think when people prescribe like nutritional guidelines, they are guidelines. So if you work out your TD, it ain't going to be 100% accurate. There's going to be so many individual differences, but that's where like you work intuitively with someone to like wean down, get closer to that estimate and make it more of an accurate number. But then where I will disagree is on the training program side of things. So cookie cutter training programs, could they be...
But like sorry to interrupt, but like I just want to say, I know what you're going to say. It depends, because if somebody is new into training, then maybe, but go on, I'll let you continue.
I think that should a training program be 100% the same across the board? No. There's going to be individual differences in there, but I think people are too, like, they want too much individualization.
Yeah, like,
Sometimes the individualization will come through changing a rep scheme. That's it. You could have the same program as someone, but the rep schemes have changed a little bit to suit your goal a bit better. Someone might say, oh, my program looks pretty similar to theirs. I should be doing something different. No, you need to get really good at the basics, master those, do those, and then individual differences will come in. That's why you'll see in rugby setups, people will have a set list that they're going to do that day. The individual differences might come in because someone doesn't like the squat, they might trap bar deadlift. But like 90% of the program stays the same. And then you've just got that individual differences based on your needs as well as your like physical limitations.
yeah, I completely agree with you. But I think the question was coming from a standpoint where people have just basic set programs, and there's no sort of like consultation process. There's just bam, there's your program. Like, hi, I want to get lean. I want to be in shape. Bam, there's your program.
Yeah, and
There's no
I think
there's no communication element. There's no consulting between coach client. You know, that kind of thing. Whereas that is kind of where I'm coming from. Whereas like where you're coming from, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so I think people are too quick to say you give someone like a bulk program, you sell it out, and they're completely the same, and you've got no input, no feedback, no variation in the program at all. Then I think you need to have a word, and the whole point where you get a coach is to get coached. But at the same time, if you're getting a program and there's alternatives for exercises in there based on your demands, say you're a rugby player and you've got like a specific like positional demand, then those changes will come in, and that's like included within the program, then that's fine. But I think if you just lump everyone under the same bracket, then you might struggle a little bit as why you're doing an exercise.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, another topic me and Joel were going to touch upon was Joel actually has had some flack on Instagram of Joel.
Yeah, I think it's like a bit too long to get into right now because
Yeah,
I think we're going to save it for another podcast, but we'll touch on it slightly because I feel like it is a strong message in there. So I
yeah,
put up a post on Holly Hagan, who started promoting a calorie deficit. And yeah, as she has surgery, yeah, an extensive amount. As she then decided that she wants to maybe jump on a bit more of a like a marketable thing now of calorie deficit, probably. But the message that she's sending is only going to get people better. No one has like thought, you know what, I'm going to jump on, look after my calories, look what I'm doing, and got worse from it. You know what I mean? There are
yeah,
some cases where watching calories and stuff can be detrimental, but for the majority of people, if you start watching your calorie intake, getting a better like understanding of the nutritional intake in certain foods, then is not gonna be of a detriment to you.
yeah,
So I had a lot of flack saying, oh, but she's had surgery, is setting an unrealistic expectation for people to achieve. But she's never said you'll look exactly like her if you follow this plan. What she said, she's stuck in lockdown. She's lost half a stone during lockdown. Is that a manageable weight? We've been in lockdown, 9 weeks? Half a stone. Oh, you know what? It's actually quite a healthy amount of weight to lose just by tracking your calories. And I feel like people would quickly jump on and be like, oh, but she's had surgery. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying she should like promote health and fitness and be like the poster girl for it. But what I'm saying is,
on.
like a healthy, why not do it?
Right, you broke up a bit then. So what were you saying?
So I was saying, like, is it going to get people better? Yeah, they're going to get a better understanding of food. Is it then, is she asked, like, should you compare yourself to her? No. But
I think ultimately it's the message behind the post. It depends what you take out from the post. Like I took out that she's, she's following, she's on the right track and she's endorsing the right practice to get to your weight loss goal. She's not promoting these, boom pods or shit like that. She did. I know she did in the past,
Yeah.
which was kind of like refreshing to see that she's finally like kind of like woke
Yeah.
up and so sense. But like at the end of the day, like the message behind her post, and like she's got a big audience. Like think of the amount of people that are now gonna know what a calorie deficit is. People are gonna know now that that is how you lose weight, and that I think you can draw positive from that.
Yeah, and just because she's had surgery, like I feel like people are quick to judge because they've either not achieved anything during lockdown, so they're like, "Oh, the reason why she's achieved that is she's had surgery." Yeah, but has she had surgery in the 9 weeks we've been in lockdown? No. Has she managed to lose weight? Yes. Can other people lose weight? Yes. If you want to lose weight, lose weight. If you don't want to lose weight, that's fine. Don't bother. But don't complain if you haven't put any effort in to losing weight.
Yeah,
So that's that really.
exactly.
Put the nail
Yeah,
on the
right.
coffin.
So moving forward with the podcast, roughly, guys, this is going to be recorded every Monday. So
Yeah,
you can
give or
look forward,
take.
give or take, you could look forward at the start of every week. You've got a podcast from us,
You can see
the
this
archive.
beautiful face.
So yeah,
I can
guys,
see the face.
that was archive episode 1.
Yeah, so I think the way we're going to try and do it is have like a main topic. So today, obviously, we waffled on about HIIT, and then we had a couple of like listener questions. So if you want us to get any questions answered, we will be putting a post up on probably both our Instagrams to get questions for next week, as well as if you don't know, we've started a archive podcast Instagram, which is archive.podcast.
It's archive.podcast on Instagram. And we what are we going to be listening to this podcast on? Probably YouTube. We'll try and get it on Spotify and iTunes or
Yeah,
SoundCloud. We'll get it on. We'll get the audio on SoundCloud.
to be honest, I'm not really sure how it runs. Like, I don't know how to get something on Spotify, so we're gonna have to look into that.
That's just
But it
something
will
we've
be
got
up on
to look
YouTube,
into.
and yeah,
SoundCloud, definitely.
yeah.
Right. Happy. That was archive episode
So
1 with me and with Dan Evans and Joel.
yeah,
Happy
thanks for listening,
days.
and see you this time next week.
Hope you enjoy. See ya.